The moment that young man passed away, her dad saw dollar signs. He forced his heartbroken 16-year-old girl right into a sound booth just to exploit her tragic loss. She tracked a couple of singles, Lost Without You and Now That You're Gone. Both absolutely tanked, sparking a lifelong grudge that made her move out at 18, never to return. Honestly, that barely scratches the surface of the truth La Bamba hid from audiences. Fans of the film probably recall that classic meet cute in class where he spots the new blonde, whispers to his buddy about falling head over heels, and awkwardly stumbles through a brief chat. It makes for great cinema, but it is pure fiction. The actual introduction between Donna Ludwig and Richie Valens went down during the summer of 1957 at a Panorama City bash hosted by the Igniters, where he was gigging with the Silhouettes. That very evening, he locked eyes with her and crooned, "We belong together." She was merely 15, while he was 16, which brings us to the biggest lie the biopic pushed about her personality. Hollywood painted her as this timid, rule-following wallflower who just waited around for the guy to take the lead. The actual woman was entirely different. Locals always noted her fierce, rebellious nature. Her dad ran a fancy Beverly Hills Packard lot and fiercely banned his golden child from hanging out with a Chicano boy from Pacoima. He laid down the law. She completely ignored it. Sneaking out her bedroom window after dark was routine just to catch him at the Rainbow Roller Rink or the local Bob's Big Boy. This teenager actively pursued her guy, risking it all just to see him. Looking back, she claimed his pure heart is what really won her over. He stayed completely away from booze and profanity. Resting against him, she remembered catching the simple scent of fresh soap. From romantic strolls through downpours to quick hallway meetups between periods, they were inseparable. She even built a whole scrapbook for their memories. Yet the silver screen completely rewrote their dynamic. Omitting these facts completely alters the narrative. The picture shows them remaining a rock-solid couple throughout his entire climb to stardom. The harsh truth is they called it quits way before he hit the big time. Once he left his studies behind to hit the road, they mutually decided on a casual arrangement. Hanging out was fine whenever he rolled through town, but they were absolutely unattached. There was zero commitment. Even the legendary Bob Keane, the executive who discovered and rebranded the young star, kept it completely real. He explicitly informed the Washington Post in 1987 that Hollywood vastly exaggerated their romance. According to the boss, she was just a familiar face rather than some epic soulmate. While the on-screen passion was heavily fabricated, the hit track itself was totally authentic. Following their split, the singer actually dialed her up to reveal a track he penned in her honor. Hearing those first few lyrics over the receiver moved her to tears. She found it deeply emotional, never suspecting it would hit vinyl. Her initial experience catching the track on the airwaves happened while she was driving through San Fernando. She was rolling with the roof down in a pristine convertible gifted by her dad. Half a dozen pals were packed into the ride when the tune dropped, causing her to almost wreck the car. Barely 15, her own name was skyrocketing up the national charts. Unfortunately, this is exactly where things take a grim turn. Despite touring the country as a rising sensation, he definitely wasn't pining for his ex. As his namesake ballad peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, the musician was fully embracing the wild rocker lifestyle. Naturally, the film completely glossed over these escapades. Biographer Beverly Mentime noted that the rising star spent plenty of time entertaining local girls while touring the Hawaiian Islands. Penning romantic letters to his former flame simply wasn't on his agenda. At just 17, he was a famous traveler caught up in the madness. It's not a critique, just straight facts. Hollywood completely scrubbed the timeline to package a pristine romance. There is a massive detail the studio deliberately buried. Following his fatal crash on February 3rd, 1959, a New Yorker named Diane Olson suddenly appeared at the burial. Marching right up to the grieving relatives, she introduced herself as his future bride. Absolutely nobody recognized her face. From his closest kin and buddies to the label boss and his famous ex, everyone was baffled. After crashing at his sister Connie's place for a brief stint, she completely dropped off the grid. Decades later, reporters and historians still cannot locate a single solid trace of her existence. Audiences were fed the image of a steadfast partner who inspired a masterpiece and held his heart until the very end. The messy truth involves a mysterious stranger at the gravesite claiming they were headed for the altar. The blockbuster predictably ignored this bizarre plot twist. Further breaking the myth, his own family later confessed they hardly had any memories of his supposed true love. His producer echoed those exact sentiments. The exec recalled a brief mention of a track penned for a local girl, but nothing beyond that. Being a 17-year-old thrust into superstardom for a few months, his life was accelerating at a terrifying pace. Ultimately, the script mutated a messy high school fling into an epic saga. This creative liberty doomed the real woman to spend decades answering for a mythical romance that never actually played out. While grabbing a cafeteria lunch on February 3rd, 1959, a classmate delivered the crushing update. Her former boyfriend had perished in a devastating aviation disaster out in Iowa. At barely 16, this was her brutal introduction to personal loss. Summoned immediately to the administrative wing, she found a swarm of reporters already waiting for her. Cameras flashed as she openly wept while clutching his portrait. The media exploited a stunned minor like some A-list celebrity before she could even process the horrific tragedy. The nightmare only escalated from there. A massive gossip publication irresponsibly leaked her private residence to the entire country. Soon, 8,000 pieces of fan mail were flooding her mailbox weekly. A pop act named The Kittens even dropped a novelty track dedicated to her. Pop culture essentially claimed ownership of this teenage girl. She was trapped playing the heartbroken muse for an epic tragedy she never requested. Then Memphis reached out. While he didn't dial directly, his security team set up a private sit-down. The reigning global superstar specifically requested an audience with a random valley girl. He desperately needed insider details on the late phenomenon. Keep in mind, this departed prodigy had achieved twin top 40 hits before hitting adulthood. Pulling off that kind of chart dominance was basically impossible back then. The ultimate icon needed to decode the young legend's magic, and she was the missing puzzle piece. The credits roll at the cemetery, tricking you into thinking it ended there. The reality is, her true suffering had just kicked off. Think back to the bombshell I dropped at the start of this breakdown. Her dad smelt a massive payday. Following the tragedy, the exact same guy who banned his kid from dating a Latino boy was suddenly obsessed with the dead star's immense clout. He shoved his mourning, 16-year-old child right in front of a microphone. She ultimately laid down vocals for Lost Without You alongside Now That You're Gone. The strategy was purely cynical. Bleed the tragedy for every dime before the hype faded. The tracks completely bombed, cementing a bitter feud that drove her out of the house forever at age 18. That bridge burned for good, with her openly admitting she held on to the grudge forever. She despised his bigoted views just as much as his greedy attempt to monetize her dead ex. The silver screen portrays her old man as a harsh disciplinarian. While true, they entirely skipped his most villainous move, since it happened long after the crash. His darkest moment occurred once the young star was buried. Remarkably, she refused to let this trauma destroy her spirit. The life she built from the ashes is a fascinating saga we haven't covered here before. Bailing on her toxic family, she tied the knot by 19. Her new beau was a gigging artist who strummed and sang. She even admitted he was practically a doppelganger for her late flame. Years later, she confessed the whole attraction was likely just a desperate attempt to replace the guy she lost. That union crumbled within 12 months, and her next attempt also failed. Luckily, the third time was the charm. Finding lasting love at last, she changed her name to Fox and relocated to a quiet Sacramento area town called Pollock Pines. After raising 2 girls, she eventually built a solid career running a local mortgage branch. Her custom car tag actually displays the phrase, "Oh Donna." The kids constantly bragged to peers about having the actual muse for a mum. Plus, that initial Delphi record featuring the legendary track remains safely in her possession. That vinyl is basically a holy relic. When La Bamba debuted in 1987, she ditched work for opening day. She sat through it twice. During both screenings, she bolted into the foyer in tears. 28 years past his tragic passing, the cinematic tribute still struck a massive chord. Yet fans constantly ask one burning question: was he truly her ultimate soulmate? The famous muse addressed this exact topic head-on. She reminds everyone she was only 15, making serious romance hard to grasp. Though she cared deeply, claiming absolute love felt completely unrealistic for an adolescent. Fans might crave a fairy tale, but her perspective remains brutally honest. Both of them were merely naive youths. Their bond was undeniably authentic, however. It proved profound enough to inspire one of the greatest rock and roll anthems ever recorded in musical history. Embellishing the past for Hollywood drama just isn't her style. That authenticity makes her actual life way more fascinating than the cinematic portrayal. The studio simply required a loyal partner to elevate their silver screen protagonist. The actual woman behind the lyrics was an independent youth. She endured tragedies no 16-year-old should ever face, entirely refusing to let society dictate her personal identity. Visiting his grave at the San Fernando Mission Cemetery remains a regular tradition. She consistently attends tribute gatherings alongside his relatives. Even after decades, the Valenzuela clan views her as permanent family. Browsing the official memorial website reveals a profoundly touching quote. She states clearly that he represented her initial taste of genuine affection, plus her first devastating encounter with loss. She remembers him as a remarkably decent, gentle, and respectful guy. That perfectly sums up the authentic muse. To discover other historical inaccuracies in La Bamba, watch my documentary breaking down Bob Morales. If you enjoy these deep dives, please subscribe, and thanks for tuning in.